Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, March 1st. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The spring game is in 46 days, the Notre Dame game in 186 days, the game against Michigan in 270 days. As we head into March, spring visit season is starting to pick up, and it's looking like the next month or so is going to be a very busy time in Columbus. My guest today is recruiting analyst Alex Gleitman. He's been busy tracking down a bunch of those upcoming visitors, and he joins me today to discuss that. Alex, thanks for being here.
Of course, Tom. Always a pleasure. Happy to be here.
So before we get into those visits, I wanted to talk about something you posted Monday morning. It was a photo you posted the photo from Taraja Mitchell of a quote posted inside the Woody Hayes. There was a lot there, but try and follow along. And the long and the short of it is, it seems like the heat on the Ohio State-Michigan game just keeps getting turned up just a little bit more. So can you explain what the photo was that Taraja posted and sort of the backstory there?
Yeah, well, Taraja, I saw on Monday morning, he posted a photo from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center that had the JJ McCarthy tweet from the exclusive that the Michigan Sports Illustrated site had with a trio of athletes where ultimately JJ basically said, we don't know. I mean, he was trying to say, I think, that like whatever happened in the past. All we know as people who are on this current team basically is beating Ohio State, and we don't plan on on that, changing anytime soon. The direct quote was, "That's all we know is beating Ohio State right now, so we're going to keep that going." Now, for me personally, I don't really see a huge problem with that quote. If that was Ohio State and it was the tables were turned, you'd want your players to be confident. Like they feel in Michigan, whether it's true or not, they feel they've gotten over the hump. And I've said this, I think it's really interesting from a psychological standpoint. I think, so obviously they didn't play in 2020. In 2021, Ohio State lost to Michigan. So, and then you're going back now, third year players, this year's to be juniors, as well as sophomores, as well as all the incoming freshmen have never lost to Ohio State. And then the seniors are 1-1 against Ohio State. So it's really interesting. Obviously, the rivalry's been so lopsided. But when you think of it like that, from a mental standpoint, I think in years past, every year they came into the game, Michigan, maybe feeling confident, maybe speaking confident. But in the back of their minds, even if they had a lead in the game, kind of being like, okay, when is the table going to turn? When is Ohio State going to beat us? Because that's just what they were used to. So I think JJ McCarthy is just trying to say, and I kind of understand it, that that's really not the mentality of this program anymore. Now, obviously, it being a rivalry, every single word is hung on, especially on the Ohio State side of things, especially after how last year's game went. So, I think it's great that Ohio State put it up that quickly. I mean, that quote just came out the other day, and they already had it up in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Monday morning. So you got to love, I mean, last year, we thought it was kind of just part of the rivalry of stepping on the jerseys and things like that. But that's the type of stuff that Michigan used as bulletin board material, the hang 100 on them thing. They used that as bulletin board material, even though that was from the year before when I think Ohio State really could have hung 100 on them. So Ohio State just doing the same thing and using this as bulletin board material. And I love it. I think it's great. I think it's good for the rivalry that there's some two-way heat. Heard from a lot of Michigan fans that I knew that, oh, you guys are the only ones who care about this rivalry. Like, you care way more than we do. Well, from the things I've seen, the comments I've seen since late November, that certainly doesn't seem to be the case. I think, Michigan fans are certainly chirping and they feel like they've gotten over that hump. So we'll see on, November 26th. It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, this is I'm right there with you. Like this is my favorite part of college football is like, yeah, score a touchdown, spin the football, like let them know. I mean that you don't need to just hand the ball to the official and just we got to respect both teams and like go have some fun with it, man. It's college football. You don't need to be super super serious all the time. So yeah, I'm completely here for this. I like the fact that when was the last time Ohio State fans had like a real villain? Like, they didn't like Mike Hart. They didn't like, Chad Henne, I guess, back in the day. But I mean, like Michigan has just I mean, Brady Hoke,
Like
kind of,
Denard
but not really.
Robinson,
Denard
I
Robinson,
guess.
maybe, but
Tate
you,
Force,
know, you
yeah. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, you go back through and it's just there's a lot of. I mean, Michigan has just not had like that Desmond Howard guy or that Charles Woodson guy for a long time, and maybe Mike Hart, maybe Denard Robinson, but there has not been that player for Ohio State fans to really get annoyed with. I feel like that anything you can do to add more heat to the rivalry, like I am always here for it, because in the same way that Michigan fans were saying maybe Ohio State fans cared too much. You had a whole decade, you this like generation of Ohio State fans who have never had to listen to Michigan fans talk for a year. So I mean, to me, that makes this a lot more fun. And the flip side of that is, well, if Ohio State goes and is up three touchdowns this fall and then throws the ball in the end zone at the end of the game, you don't get to punch someone in the handshake line. Like this is how you can play it this way, and then this is just both ways there. Like that makes this a lot more fun. Like go do the go for two, and then use that to fuel you for the 1969 season. Like all that stuff. Like that is this rivalry to me. So yeah, I love it. I love the JJ McCarthy stuff. After Taraja Mitchell posted that picture, J McCarthy just posted the picture of Taraja Mitchell's picture and just said rent free. And it's like, man, you are playing this perfectly. That is perfect. Do that. Keep doing that. This is going to be a fun year. So, all right, that's enough for the Michigan Instagram, yada yada yada. So let's move on to the upcoming visitors. One of the big recruiting weekends coming up this spring actually comes a couple weeks before the spring game, and there are some really, really monster prospects visiting April 1st through April 3rd, which is not the spring game weekend. So was that an intentional thing to bring all those guys in that weekend? What's the deal?
It wasn't intentional, but when there was opportunity for the South Florida Express 7-on-7 team. I don't know exactly where they'll be that weekend, but I believe that they'll be somewhere in the area, playing on the circuit. And, they're going to come by and they're going to bring a bunch of their guys to Ohio State for an unofficial visit. Wide receiver Brandon Innes, wide receiver Carnell Tate, cornerback Sharif Denson, cornerback Carmani McLean, Ohio State commit Cedric Hawkins, safety Damon Fagan, and then there, a couple 2024 kids and JoJo Trader and Jeremiah Smith, two wide receivers. So they'll all be there, as will this is coincidentally, I believe, is Georgia safety Caleb Downs, a 5-star safety in the 2023 class. So that alone right there, and I'm sure there will be a few more, that is a stacked visit list. That rivals what will be probably some of the official visit weekends in April and June, and then obviously in the fall. So huge opportunity for Ohio State, get these kids on campus, paying their own dime to get there, still be able to bring them back for an official visit couple months or maybe in the fall, depending on when they're taking those. But obviously, big-time players, a bunch of 5-stars that I named in that group.
One thing that's nice about having these guys on campus for a week that's not a game weekend, not even a spring game weekend, is, a fall weekend and game weekend, you're not able to hang out with them pregame. You're not able to spend a lot of time with them because you got to worry about the game. During the game, you're worrying about the game. After the game, you got a limited amount of time, and then you got to be on to the next game. This is kind of interesting because you've got a weekend where it's like a practice weekend. I assume they may have a scrimmage or something, and maybe they'll do a scrimmage in the stadium or something a couple weeks before the spring game. But you have an opportunity to spend a lot more time with those guys, even if it is just an unofficial visit. That seems like something that could, you can build some relationships there, and we've seen Brian Hartline build relationships there. You mentioned Brandon Innes, Carnell Tate being in that weekend. That just those two guys, those are guys who both have been to campus before. We've seen both of those guys at camp last summer, for example. But that could be a big chance for Hartline to potentially, maybe seal the deal with one or both of those guys, and continue to build that wide receiver talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you nailed it, Tom. Tremendous opportunity to basically roll out the red carpet. Spend pretty much every minute. I mean, you're going to be coaching on practice a little bit, but when you're coaching on practice, you're going to be able to do some things to showcase to those guys what maybe they want to see. I remember, was it Jeremy Ruckert maybe? I remember when he went to visit and he saw practice, I think they scripted up a bunch of throws to the tight end when he went and watched practice. And you saw how often they threw to the tight end over his 4 years at Ohio State. So, everything from that all the way to eating breakfast, lunch, dinner with them, having the players spend time with them, housing them in the dorms or their apartments or whatever overnight. I just, spending time with the parents, the academic people, all that, it's going to be a great opportunity for Ohio State to impress these guys. And as you said, I mean, some of these coaches are tremendous. I'm not sure, I'm especially with the caliber of player these guys are. I'm not sure. Maybe a Carnell Tate, but the other guys I wouldn't expect a commitment from. But I think it could just continue to build the foundation, continue to lay the groundwork, and then could that be kind of a turning point in a recruitment that ends up in an eventual commitment to Ohio State? I absolutely think so.
You mentioned a couple of names earlier, two defensive backs that I wanted to kind of circle back on because those are names that I think people need to know. And we've maybe mentioned Cormani McClain on the show before. I'm not sure if we've talked about Caleb Downs. So can you give people just a little bit of a background on who those guys are, maybe where things stand with their recruitments right now?
Yeah, Cormani McClain, excellent cornerback, long kid, super athletic kid. I think he'll finish as like a top 10 player in the country overall. Probably could have a case for number 1 overall player in the country. Cornerback from Florida. So that probably brings back some nightmares for Ohio State recruiting fans. Some Jordan Battle, obviously Jaheim Singletary last year. But Ohio State's in this one. I'm not going to say they're the leader. I think Georgia was in a great spot, and then their defensive backs coach left, went to Miami. So I think Miami's a player now. I think both Florida schools, Florida State, are players. I think Alabama's a player. So I would say probably those 5 schools right now might be Ohio State's main competition. And a kid from Florida to pull him out of that region with those schools going for him is not going to be easy, but they've got a shot. They're going to have him up April 1st through 3rd in that range, which will be a great opportunity to get him on campus, and then hopefully bring him back for an official visit at some point. I know Bank had heard that he might be coming up with his mom in March before that April visit. His mom's going to be on the April trip, but he might be coming up with his coach in March before that April visit. So I think the fact that his mom is coming in April is absolutely huge. It's not just the kid coming along, tagging along with his buddies for the free ride. The mom is coming, which means business. And then I think if he actually does show up in March and then comes back in April, I mean, you really got to start paying attention to this one because that means this kid's really serious about Ohio State.
Now, you had kind of tracked all the guys who were planning to come throughout the course of the spring, at least so far. And we've touched on just some of the names from that one weekend. Is there another name or two that people, you think people might need to know, just at least maybe someone who's kind of serious about Ohio State, or someone who might be on commitment watch, or maybe just a really highly ranked prospect who's kind of coming in for the first time to take a look at Ohio State?
Yeah. First, I realized I didn't touch on Caleb Downs at all. I mean, he's a 5-star out of Georgia. He is going to be tough to pull. I think Notre Dame's a big competitor, but Ohio State, he came out last summer. He'll be there again, on his own dime. And then I imagine that, they'll hope to get an official visit from him. So they're in the game on that one too, but it's going to be a long shot. And then I think not April, but March, just coming up next week, actually. So a week from Tuesday, March 8th, they're going to have another Florida kid, a wide receiver, Bryson Rogers, coming up for a visit. And this is Bryson's first visit to Ohio State. He just got an offer about a month ago. This is a kid who has kind of completely blown up over the last few months. I actually had the pleasure of covering him a bunch because he is a pretty big Rutgers target. So I got to see, he was actually at the Ohio State Rutgers game last year in SHI Stadium in Jersey. He flew up from Florida for that game, along with another Ohio State target, Hakeem Williams, and Santana Fleming, who's on the OSU radar as well. And so he was there. I believe he might be pretty good friends actually with Troy Bowles too, which could be a bonus for Ohio State down the line. But when he got the Ohio State offer, he talked about it as his dream offer. I know Ohio State would take him today. They like the kid a lot. Brian Hartline's been on him pretty hard. The secret here that not many people know is that Bryson Rogers' mother is from Ohio originally and grew up. Guess who she was rooting for growing up? The Ohio State Buckeyes. So I think that's one where I would watch very closely. I can't decide. I think he's a kid where I feel like if he knows where he's going to go, he's just going to decide there. I don't think he's a Florida game player type of kid. That's just not the type of kid he is. So I could see a commitment to Ohio State shortly after that March visit, but there's a chance he could end up just taking his officials just because it's a once-in-a-lifetime type of process and then ending up making the decision. But I do think Ohio State will be in a great position for Bryson Rogers after that March 8th visit, and I don't think too many people are talking about him in this 2023 class.
All right, that's a good one. Anytime, if the mom, you sell mom, that's one of those recruiting rules. If you sell mom, that goes a long way a lot of times. So if mom came up as a Buckeye fan, that probably will definitely help. So Alex, thank you as always for joining me. Thank you for your insight and all of that kind of stuff. And if you enjoyed listening to Alex talk on podcast, friends, do I have great news? He has his very own podcast. It's called Around the Oval. You can find it wherever you find Morning Scoop, wherever you find Buckeye Weekly, wherever you find the Big Me Kickoff and Gives in the Bank. There are all those great shows. You can find them all. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find them all. Wherever you're listening to this, you can subscribe right there. You can leave us a 5-star rating or review, which will help other folks find those shows. And if you want to watch us on YouTube, they're all on YouTube as well, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. And we have plenty of other great content there as well. Kevin Noon and Mark Givler have been on the road covering camps and commitment ceremonies and all sorts of fun stuff. You can find all that great stuff at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Hit that bell, subscribe to our channel, and also hit that thumbs up, and that will help other folks find those videos. It's a pretty simple thing you can do that helps us out a lot, so we do appreciate it. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.